the best thing for this person is for them to part ways with you. And you need to have the leadership. And that was way young in my career, but I was like, oh my gosh, I never thought about terminating somebody as benefiting them if you do it correctly. Yeah. And it's tough because, like you said, in a culture, in more of a family sports teams culture, which is similar to how we run, we've got such big hearts that we can easily allow ourselves to get taken advantage of. And also, like I said, do a disservice to somebody instead of saying, no, we've given you kind of our process of the attempts. We've coached you. That's not working. And this is not a fit for you. And I've had multiple employees call me afterwards and say, hey, I appreciate the way you did that. And you were right. I'm not interested in being on your team anymore. I'm interested in this other thing that I'm going to go do now. And I'm like, that's awesome.
And that's something that I'm happy that we're able to accomplish as well, because when somebody leaves, we let them go, they quit or whatever. It very, very, very rarely is confrontation. It's
for sure.
Hey, this was done the right way and so forth. What you're talking about is so true. And I had the blessing of learning about this from my dad early on, so I've had to internalize it. I've still fallen for keeping people we shouldn't have. I'm constantly working with the team. Just because you love people doesn't mean you have to love them here. They can go elsewhere, and we're not murdering them when we let them go. Like, they can still go work. And most of the time when people are in a role and they're not doing well, they know it, and they're not happy. It's just who's going to take the lead as a leader on doing something about it. And that's what it comes down to.
Welcome to the Exceptional Companies Podcast, a podcast for purpose-led entrepreneurs looking to master the art of buying, selling, or optimizing small businesses. Your host, Chris Seegers, founder of Exceptional Companies and author of Selling Main Street, has over a decade of experience starting, buying, and leading successful businesses. He's here to guide you through the complex world of business transactions and growth. Each week, we dive deep with actionable insights, expert interviews, and real-world strategies to activate and equip you to live exceptionally and build exceptional businesses. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Here's your host, Chris Seegers.
Welcome to the Exceptional Companies Podcast, where we chat about how to buy, sell, or grow your business. Today, I'm joined by a truly incredible guest, Trent Urban. Welcome to the show, brother. Trent is founder and CEO of WireNut Home Services, which is one of the largest home service companies in Colorado and maybe eventually the U.S. You've connected with some of the folks on our team, and I think we've heard from actually a lot of folks in the community that you've got a truly amazing culture. I've seen your billboards and advertising everywhere, and I thought you guys were a national franchise because of how great you do marketing. And then as I started doing research, I saw you had over 3,900 excellent Google reviews, which is really incredible. So anyways, Trent, welcome to the show, brother. I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. And to start off with, I'm not surprised that you were thinking we're a franchise. We get that a lot. We actually try to fight against that because we're like, no, we're local. We're here. That's one of our uniques. So, yeah.
But I think it's a testament to how good your marketing and branding is. Generally, franchises do a great job on marketing branding, maybe not the best job on execution. Yeah. And I would say you guys have hit both those pillars really well. So anyways, I'm really impressed just from an outsider's view. But tell us, man, I want to hear more about the story. So how you got into entrepreneurship, why you started in entrepreneurship. I know you have a big, deep background in the trades. I know your family's involved, your dad, maybe some siblings, your kids, but tell us a little bit about your background.
I fell into electrical, so I'm a master electrician. At this point, master mechanical too for HVAC, but most of my experience is in electrical. I've been doing this since I was a kid, off and on during summers, helping out my dad. He was a master electrician. He led his laps. But came down to I was going to have my oldest son, and I was like, oops, I better figure this out. And I was trying to go to school to be an engineer, and I ended up not doing it. So fast forward, I don't have any regrets about that. I think this is a lot more interesting, and I don't like stagnant things. I like variation. So being an engineer, I don't know if that would give me all of that. So what I did, though, when I found out I was going to have my son is I went to my dad and said, hey, is there any future in this? And he had a small electrical company, construction company. And
was that based here in Springs or somewhere
else?
It
was, yeah. You would have probably never heard of us or seen us because at the time it was a construction-only company, and we were doing heavy industry work, like University Park in Colorado Springs. That's one area that I think of. In order for
Yep.
that
Sure.
whole development to go in, they needed water supply. So we went and we built out the pump station for that. And so I was doing a lot of
Nice.
that kind of work. So you'd never see us because we were there before the neighborhood or anything like that. So anyway, if I fast forward and skip kind of the construction side, there's a lot there, but that's not what we're talking about today. That takes us to 2001-ish. We considered a franchise, and it was simply because my dad and I were like, doing service work in between projects is challenging. We didn't have a good process for it. The billing, invoicing, you name it, all of the stuff, finding good people, all of that. We didn't have a good method for that for service work. And the people that we were sending into homes here and there, in between jobs, were construction guys, and they looked like it, acted like it, and the homeowner was not their priority.
For sure.
2004, we found a model. It's a peer group that we joined. We've been with them ever since. I've got tons of friends in that. So when you say maybe the biggest or whatever it was take over the country, like I've got some friends that have these massive, just absolutely amazing companies. I'm just trying to carry some of the good DNA of each. That's all we are.
I love it, man.
Really.
That's really good.
Yeah. And so so when we started that, brought in my brother. He was a financial advisor and didn't like it. And so he joined the family company. He ran it by himself for a few years. Then I joined him unwillingly, but I actually joined him because of the recession, the Great Recession, as they call it.
Yep.
That forced me to leave my namesake of Urban Electric and come over to WireNut. And they were in the same building at the time, but since then we've closed down Urban Electric. But anyway, I joined my brother. We, because of closing down Urban Electric, bought out our parents so that they could have money for retirement. And because they owned the shares of WireNut, they were the ones that funded it via Urban Electric. And we bought them out. And then a couple of years later, I bought out my brother. It was just pretty challenging. You work with your brother. I mean,
I do.
it can get tricky.
Yeah.
For us,
For sure.
it wasn't for us. And so it was just kind of a crapshoot on who was going to end up moving forward with the company. So that ended up being me. About that same time, I added HVAC, serve more for the same owner. If we're in the home, what more can we do for them? That kind of thing. And then since then, we've also
For sure.
added plumbing and drains. So now
That's
we offer
great.
those 4 services.
So, how did you change your mindset around running a business as opposed to running trades? Because I think you have a totally different approach with a focus on customer service and branding and scaling. Was it the peer group and just kind of your tribe that helped you see that? Because we don't see that a lot in the trades,
Yep.
which is why most of them are kind of 1 to 5 million in revenue and they cap out somewhere around there. And then that's where they are. And they're not interested in processes and procedures and really dialing in the team. But talk to our audience, because a lot of our audience is young acquisition entrepreneurs, and we help them a little bit on the coaching side, utilizing EOS and some other systems that have worked really well for us
we use it.
to really say, hey, like you need to build a business that has enterprise value. That should always be the goal. Like enterprise value is an output of doing people right and processes right and having a history of profitability. But how did you get from A to B on that?
That's such a great question because that is the holdback, Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind is I used to let the team know or various people know in kind of a joking way, but hey, I have to forget that I'm an electrician. And the reason for that is because otherwise I would get all of the technical questions. I would end up out on the job fixing things for them or working alongside with them. And there was a time and place for that. But it comes down to essentially this. If I'm out doing that stuff, who's going to come in and do my stuff?
Right.
Nobody else has the knowledge or the freedom, whatever the latitude to do it. If I make mistakes, I'm making mistakes with my own money. If I plug in a manager early on and they're not well versed in it, I'm going to pay for all their mistakes. And so basically what I'm trying to say is you've got to get to the focus of where should you actually be. And you mentioned EOS. We've run through that. We've been on that for many years now. And in there, they identify you need a visionary, you need an operator, you need all these different facets that without any one of them, frankly, you're going to have failures. And so I've always been an operator. I think it was kind of ingrained in me from running construction projects. You had to always be planning, always be ahead of your crews, always know A, B options and what could potentially happen. So that's wired into me operationally, but then I also had to become the visionary, and I don't know, somehow I did it, I guess. Accidentally stumbled across the fact that I could be a visionary. So let me unpack what you just asked a little bit more too. I have friends in the peer group. I have various people I've known. I've seen, done acquisitions, things like that. And I've seen a lot of the husband is the tradesperson, the wife is the office, and the wife, whether she's there willingly or not willingly, that also has an influence on it. But that's a holdback in a lot of ways. If you have a wife that's willingly there and she's talented, and if that's your situation, cut her loose to let her do her visionary things and run with it and truly make it something unique. Otherwise, you're held back. You need a visionary. Otherwise, the tradesperson, say in this stereotypical version, the husband, then they have to become the visionary and they have to stop being a tradesperson. That's the 10,000-foot view on it. There's a lot more to it, but yeah, it's basically that.
For sure.
And then
Yeah, and that
basically,
let me touch on that real quick, because that is a huge mindset shift that we've helped clients with, which is, hey guys, get people and their unique abilities. And if it is a husband, wife, also if the wife is running the back office and hates it, like get her out of that position, figure out a way to hire that out. Because when we sell a business for somebody, especially in the trades, and it's like, hey, wife and husband are running the whole thing. They're both working 40 hours. The resale, the enterprise value of that business is very low because now you have to replace two things. And, you know, I believe everybody should work on their business and in their business, not in their business all the time, but you need to have an understanding of what your business is doing. But as you get to that point, like you really should be saying, if we've got people that can do those jobs and we're working up here, like what's the uplift in value? And it's substantial. So yeah, that's a really good point that I think a lot of people don't think about.
100%. And I think what you're also touching on, which is worth, you know, for adding value to the podcast here, we're building businesses not to hopefully stroke our egos. We're building them to create a life that is not a common, you know, not everyone is willing and able to do it. And so if you want what others can't have, you got to be willing to do what others won't do. And that includes stretching outside your comfort zones. That includes turning it into a value-added business. It can't just be a lifestyle thing. If it's a lifestyle thing, then I've seen that many, many times. I imagine you've seen it hundreds of times. That this company is near and dear to the owner. It's probably part of their DNA, their ego, their personality, everything. But when it goes to selling it, there's not a whole lot of value. And so all of their life's work just turned into not a whole lot. And that's unfortunate. That's terrible to see because I know firsthand there isn't a single business owner out there that hasn't, you know, slaved away on that business. At times made the business the forefront ahead of even their families. I know I've had to do it. And so if you're not going to get a big reward out of that, why are you doing it? Honestly, there's a lot of cases where you can make more money being an employee, being part of a really strong, capable team than you can doing it yourself, where you're enslaved in the business.
For sure. Yeah. If you don't have a plan to scale and to grow that enterprise value. So our planning process, we always start with your personal goals and your wealth goals. Your business should inform those, not vice versa. Like you should say, this is the life I want. And if it's like, hey, it's a good life, but I don't need that much money and I want to play a lot, you probably don't need to buy a business. But if you have goals probably similar to what you and I have, which is like, I want to be in the 1% of the fullest, richest life. I don't want to have any dollar thing that I can't do, any giving thing I can't do. I want to be able to play full out. That does require a totally different approach on the risk you're going to take, the amount of hours you're going to work. And I think what you touched on is a growth mindset. If you want to be top 1%, you can't stop growing ever until you die. I mean, you've got to continue to say like, hey, how do we evolve? How do we optimize this piece? How do we do this? How do we do this? So I agree with you. I think I've written a couple books on business acquisition and divestiture. And one of the things I always say is, hey, I don't think there's an entrepreneur gene, but I really think clarity of what you want out of life is the step that you do before you say, I should go buy a business. There's so much stuff in social media right now that says everyone should buy a business. And I'm like, that's just false. If it's not going to inform what your personal and wealth goals are and it doesn't fit into that, you shouldn't. And there's a lot of other factors you've got to kind of think through, but I love that, man. So that perspective shift. So let's talk a little bit about family. Like, how did you include your family, whether it be your spouse or your kids, in this vision? Because we have a family office. We work with, right now, 5 of my siblings. I'm one of 8 in different businesses. And so we work a lot on that, on maintaining the relationship, but also having accountability and processes. But tell us a little bit in that, because I think a lot of businesses have family components to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do. And so the family dynamic, I think, in a lot of ways fits in with what I'm trying to do with the business on all facets. So anybody that comes in touch with my company, I want it to be an enrichment to that life, our life, all of those. And so that means I have to include the family, and I should. I mean, that's where it starts anyway. So at this point, I've got my oldest son. He actually does all of our marketing. So if you see our billboards, you see any of our print ads, he's great on that. I don't know if I use the right gesture, maybe this. So he does a great job on that. And he went to school for marketing. He tells us, well, I didn't learn a whole lot there. It's all been here. Okay, cool.
For sure.
Cool. Then we've got, a robust operation. My youngest son helps us remote. He's up in Fort Collins right now. He's ultimately going to go do something else. And my middle son, he's an engineer. So I've had all 3 of them work here at different times. They chose to, and so forth. But I've always tried to have it be an inviting family environment. We have, like my bookkeeper, sometimes she'll have one of her boys come in. And so we just try to keep it family oriented. And if I can go a little longer on this topic, we're trying to be in this sweet spot where we're not corporate. Like, I despise bureaucracy. That's one thing that you'll get me fired up on that. Bureaucratic red tape just for the sake of wasting people's time and money. No, thank you. But
it kills innovation.
It does. I've got some land over here that's been sitting there for 3 years because the county and city got in my way too much. I had to ditch the project and move us elsewhere. So anyway, if we're not going to be bureaucratic, we can't also, I don't want us to be down here at the bottom where we're chaotic. And so we're trying to play in this sweet spot, and it's a very tricky sweet spot to stay in. People focused, but with accountability and with rules. And it's no different than how my wife and I raised our 3 boys. If I say I'm counting to 3, I have to actually make it to 3, and then I have to do the repercussions that I threatened, unfortunately. And it's the same thing in business. You have to have some standards. Otherwise, you have more and more quote-unquote kids that are going to abuse that. And they're going to go all over the place, and they're not going to know what's expected, and they're not going to feel that comfort of knowing that, hey, I know where I lie and how I'm going to stay out of disrespecting the company or being disrespected. And so we just try to keep it simple and respectful. On the family side, we have a core value that literally says it, and our 3 core values are care, family, and grow. You have to care about the company has to care about you. You have to care about the customer. Customer doesn't have to care about us. That's not their obligation. You get into the family side, and we have to treat people like family, the good family that respects each other. And the third one of grow is you have to have a growth mindset. You have to grow yourself. The company has to grow. Frankly, that thing of you're growing or you're dying, it is true. I witnessed it in Denver. We used to have a pretty large operation in Denver, and it didn't work out well. We didn't support it well. We didn't have the infrastructure to make it long-term viable. So you have to grow or you're going to be taken over. I mean, you look in the market right now, I've got at least 2, probably more copycats that are using our color, our basically a different rendition of our logo, our Joey guy, things like that. And we got to fight for our spot. We're not a monopoly, and we're not government where we get to control it all without any competition.
I love it, man. So one of my favorite speakers, mentors, et cetera, is a guy named Jim Rohn, which almost no one knows about anymore. He's been dead for a long time, but he coached Tony Robbins. But he speaks a lot about that and he's got a master class that's on Audible that's like $10. It may be one of the greatest things ever created. I mean, it's incredible. It's about business, personal development, but he talks a lot about hey, the reason the U.S. is successful is a demarcation point of power with the people, not power with the government. The point in time that we start shifting towards bureaucracy, then innovators like us say it's really not worth the headache. And Colorado's shifting that direction, and I hope we can shift back, which is pro-family, pro-business, cutting red tape. California's failing. We don't want to be California. Like there's better models. And I think in business, it's a great platform to really start innovating and letting our people in political platforms say, hey guys, you're kind of killing this piece of our business.
Yeah.
We aren't incentivized to grow. Let's get back to it because we're the growth engine for this economy. And I think it's the same way in culture. And I love your core values because they are very aligned with ours. One of our core values is growth oriented. And when we hire somebody, I say, hey, our company is not a fit for a lot of people.
Yeah.
We hire self-governed adults, and then we give them the playbook to be massively successful. But you've got to be self-governed. Like we will not micromanage you. We will provide every resource you need to be successful personally and professionally. But if you're not willing to do the work, it's not going to be a fit.
Yeah.
And people thrive. People very quickly are like, that's not a fit, or they thrive and they're like, this is exactly what I've been looking for.
And you dodged a bullet if you would have let one of those on that didn't want that. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There's
man.
people that need to work at the DMV as well. I mean, so
100%. And that's what I've said. If you love being an employee and it serves your personal goals and your wealth goals, do that thing. Like God has created us all uniquely. And none of us should say, I want to be Chris or Trent, because there's only one of us in the world. Like we are created a certain way to do certain things and other people aren't. And I'm totally happy in my own skin and hope other people are as well. Yeah. Let me ask a little different question. So you just talked about copycat. And I think that's, if you're really good at what you do, people are immediately going to try to figure it out and duplicate it. And it's getting easier with, I think, AI and technology. But what was different about you guys, about WireNut, that propelled you to the next level? Because you are, man. You like, even if there's always somebody bigger and further along than you are for sure, and your peer groups are just nationwide, but you guys have done really well. If you could bring up 2 or 3 things that you're like, man, these are the things that we just chewed on for 10 years that differentiated us, what do you think those would be?
Culture was one of the big ones. I don't want to talk too badly about this time of the life, but my brother and I, when we were together on the company, it didn't have a great culture. So there's this old version of WireNut that wasn't great. My brother knows it. He wouldn't shy away from it. He's changed. He's calm now. But back in those days, it wasn't such. And so it made me hyper aware that a culture that's not incredibly strong comes with a lot of cost, mental cost, retention cost, lack thereof, all these other things. So I started studying places that had amazing cultures. And back in those days, Zappos, you ever hear of them?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
They were one of them.
Yeah, there's a great book on them.
Yeah. Yep. Tony Hsieh, he's passed away since then, but he was the guy that did all that. So what made us different? I want to make sure I don't go astray.
Yeah, for sure. Like, what are the things so let's dig into culture, because could you define culture? I think everybody talks about culture, and I have a very specific definition of culture, but how would you define it?
Let me start off with, or I'm not even starting, but let me add this. Culture, I think, is a played out word, but basically culture is just simply the personality of the company. What do you want to be? Who is the company? You meet a friend of a friend. You meet somebody for the first time, you're like, I just like what that represents. Well, you have to have that. You have to show and express that. And if the company is bureaucratic, stale, always worried about HR, all these things, the cancel culture like we've had. Nobody can do anything without getting in trouble. And at a certain point, and you're seeing it now, people are like, you know what, screw this. I need some freedoms. I need to be able to express myself. And that's what culture is. So have a respectful culture, but have a real culture, a fun culture. Today we've got, so actually our 21st birthday as a company is this week, so 2 days ago.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
We've got these goofy hats. Today is Goofy Hat Day. Yesterday was Bring Your Favorite Tool to Work Day. I kept, by the way, telling my son, I was like, you can't use me as your favorite tool.
Love it.
But be real, make it simple, don't complicate it. But also in that, with the culture, one of the things that we actually went through about 2 years ago is that we were so focused on culture that to everybody kind of meant we never, ever hold somebody truly accountable to the point where, hey, you're just not carrying your weight and you got to go.
Yeah.
Because we've given you chance after chance. If they're not carrying their weight, you're only as good as your team. And I unfortunately...
Can I dig into that a little bit, Trent? Because I have a thesis, and tell me if you think I'm wrong, and I won't be offended. But as we started talking culture, I said to my team, I said, look, I don't believe we can have culture without process. I don't think let's say, so one of our core values is service, right? Serve our clients, serve our community, serve each other. Well, if we don't have a process to do that, then we can say, hey, we love our clients and we serve them well. But at the end of the day, if that process isn't written and followed by all, we actually don't have integrity of the culture that we say.
And why
And
do you
so for
say
me,
that? Because you don't think it'll be enduring?
yeah, I think that you can have a great heart and emotional desire to serve your client well. But if you have 3,900 reviews like you, the only way that you do that over 21 years is you have a process that says, okay, our output, our core values are serve. We want to do that really well, but let's reverse engineer. What are the things that we have to do that well? Because you can do it well for a bit, right? You can say, hey, we love doing this. And then eventually you're like, oh, shoot, we forgot to send them this, or we forgot to follow up, or we forgot to do this. And all of a sudden, the core value or culture that you say, which is serve, you're saying we don't have integrity of that core value. Actually, we want it. We want to be that thing, but the processes are what truly says we have the culture that we say we do.
Yeah, and
How do you think that?
you're carrying the culture out into the impact that it leaves as well. So yeah, it's a more dynamic way of looking at it, because otherwise culture is just how you interact internally, and it really what you do internally, how you treat each other internally, is going to carry out to the customers you serve. And so you have to be very careful about that. If you're not careful with who you have on the team, and if you follow desperation mode, which I've fallen for in the past, you always will end up with paying the piper on that at some point.
For sure.
And so that's where we had to establish, okay, who are we? What's our DNA? And then if we share this, who's going to be aligned towards it? And it made things so much easier. Like our DNA is, let's be easy, simple to interact with, pull away all the barriers and red tape, have fun, but also be incredibly reliable. And that's where the reliable side started faltering somewhat in the, hey, the accountability isn't as high as it could be. This person, sure, they've been here for 8 years, but the impact they're leaving is lesser now than it used to be. What's going on? So we talk about that, have real conversations about that, and give an opportunity for growth and improvement. And if it doesn't happen, you have to be strong enough. You have to be an actual leader and lead that separation process. Because otherwise, you see it a lot of times where a leader, and I don't even think they are in this situation, lets the employee go and lead the charge and say, I'm just going to leave because of whatever. Well, somebody has to take the lead on that. And you've chosen in those situations to let the employee take the lead on that. That's not what a leader does.
Yep.
A leader leans in, deals with the difficult things, works them through, doesn't abuse the person, but just has those real conversations and expects from an accountability side that they're willing and able to also have the conversation. If you have somebody with an incredibly fragmented, soft, whatever it may be, ego where they can't ever receive feedback, that person isn't going to grow. You're not going anywhere with them.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. One of my mentors, who's just incredible, is a guy named Dave, and they grew a multi-billion-dollar oil and gas company and sold it to Oxy. And anyways, so he mentored me for a long time, and we had an employee in that kind of role. It was like, hey, we've gone through the appropriate things to try to call them up and make sure that they're growing, and those aren't happening. And he's I'm a pretty brutal truth teller, and that's what I appreciate in mentors. He said, hey, just so you know, you're doing this person a huge disservice. Because you're allowing them to stay on a team that they have already told you by their actions they don't want to be on. Yeah. So there's some other role and some other place that this person should be pursuing, or they need to learn a lesson that's going to help them for the next 20 years of their life. And you as a leader are preventing that lesson from happening. Yep. And so he's like, hey, you need to step up. The best thing for this person is for them to part ways with you. Yeah. And you need to have the leadership. And that was way young in my career, but I was like, oh my gosh, I never thought about terminating somebody as benefiting them if you do it correctly. Yeah. And it's tough because, like you said, in a culture, in more of a family sports teams culture, which is similar to how we run, we've got such big hearts that we can easily allow ourselves to get taken advantage of. And also, like I said, do a disservice to somebody instead of saying, no, we've given you our process of the attempts. We've coached you. That's not working. And this is not a fit for you. And I've had multiple employees call me afterwards and say, hey, I appreciate the way you did that. And you were right. I'm not interested in being on your team anymore. I'm interested in this other thing that I'm going to go do now. And I'm like, that's awesome.
And that's something that I'm happy that we're able to accomplish as well, because when somebody leaves, we let them go, they quit or whatever. It very, very, very rarely is confrontational. It's
For
okay,
sure.
hey, this was done the right way and so forth. What you're talking about is so true. And I had the blessing of learning about this from my dad early on. So I've had to internalize it. I've still fallen for keeping people we shouldn't have. I'm constantly working with the team. Just because you love people doesn't mean you have to love them here. They can go elsewhere, and we're not murdering them when we let them go. Like, they can
For sure.
still go work. And most of the time when people are in a role and they're not doing well, they know it and they're not happy. It's just who's going to take the lead as a leader on doing something about it. And that's what it comes down
Yeah.
to. So,
Oh man, that's so good, man. I think like to synopsis that's so good. If you really love somebody well, you'll have that hard conversation. That, man, I love how you put that. That was really good.
and so my dad, this is where I was reflecting on. So my dad let I guess it must have been an electrician, go many decades ago. And then probably, I think he said 2, 3, whatever years later, he's in a restaurant having breakfast, something along those lines, and a woman walks up to him and says, "Are you Bob Urban?" He's like, "Yeah, I am." He's surprised that she knew who he was or whatever, so she must have seen him at an outing or something. And she says, 2, whatever years ago, you fired my husband. My dad braces like, uh-oh, now what do we get to here? And she said, "Thank you for doing that. It's the best thing that ever happened to him. At that time in his life, he obviously was a terrible employee. You let him go. He wasn't a good father. He wasn't a good husband. When that happened, it shook him up and made him realize and reevaluate, and we're better than ever now." That's what you can do
That's
for people's
awesome, man.
lives if you're willing to,
For
again,
sure.
be the leader. You can't be a pacifist on this.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
I love
get
that,
out of the
man.
way and let somebody else lead it. And don't kid yourself that you're a leader.
Yeah, for sure. I'm pretty tough on parenting too. And I'm going to paraphrase, but basically in the Bible, it says, hey, if you don't discipline your kid, you hate your kid. And I've told that to other parents just to say, hey guys, like it's easy to be like, here's a screen, go do whatever you want. But that is actually you saying, I don't care enough about my kid to do the hard thing, which is I need to interact with them. We need to go find something for them to do, be constructive. Or, hey, we have a phrase in my family, like, we don't play video games. We're not a family that plays video games. Like, that's just not, they will never be in the DNA of our family. My kids on a weekly, if not daily basis are like, can we get a video game? Can we do this? And I'm like, we're not a family. So I think that goes back to like, as a leader, your love is dictated by the hard things and hard conversations that you will do. It's easy to be the easy guy that's like, oh, it's all good, when you know that person isn't growing and doing the things and you're like, man, you're actually doing them such a disservice.
Do you like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode by clicking the subscribe button now and check out our website, www.excoadvisors.com. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now, back to the show.
Let me ask you a different question, because this goes kind of right into culture. What was some bad advice you heard along your entrepreneurial journey, or some bad counsel that you guys are seeing in social media right now that you're like, this is a good platform to just tell young folks, hey, here are some things I don't believe to be true in the business world or marketplace? Like, does anything come to mind on that?
Get rich quick, MLM kind of stuff. Following the path that everybody else follows. If you do that, you're just one of the ants scurrying along. How are you ever going to separate yourself out? So leaning in, going a different way is typically a lot more beneficial. Look at the tech industry. When computers were being developed, it wasn't 500 computer companies. It was probably at 3 or 4, things like that. So they went a different way. Well, you have to be patient. And then I want to expand on that in a minute, because there's a point at which you have to flip the script on that. But you have to be patient in order to get there. There was some phrase, and it cracks me up every time I think about it. I'm like, yeah, I'm a 20-year overnight success.
That's right. Yeah, I've heard that too. That's so good.
Jeff Bezos, he was willing to run a non-profitable company, have investors involved, build something nobody else could ever do. Otherwise they would have. Walmart should have built Amazon. They didn't. And you look at Kodak. Kodak should have built the digital camera. They didn't. So if you're going the same way as everybody else, or you're stuck in your trenches, you're not going to be versatile. And anyway, but I think that's a side tangent. So Overall, you have to work for it. You have to work harder for it than anybody else will. Otherwise, you frankly don't deserve it. It's not something you worked for. And you're going to know it in your
Yep.
DNA later anyway. You'll be like, this, I'm a fraud, I'm a fake, whatever. You got to actually work. You got to put in that effort and you've got to earn what you're wanting. And if you do that,
Yep.
on a good model, and if your model has some tweaks and stuff, you got to implement those tweaks and fix it. But if you do those two things, then at some point you should have whatever it is you're trying to create. One thing I had done, I think it was the first time I did it was like 2011. I got exposed to the Dream Manager book. It's a culture one, but it also talks about
Oh, that's so good, man.
And I
Yeah,
did
we
my dream
implemented that
book.
with our team.
Yeah, have you done a dream book on that?
But
So
what is the
you
dream
go
book?
in
Is
and
that
you
for your company?
yeah no you go in and you put anything you want in there,
Oh
personal,
yeah,
business, whatever
love
it
it.
is. I've got a friend that he went to a whole other degree. He's got a wall where he's got sticky notes and he says 2026 have a grant my first grandkid, 2028 have this, and
Love it.
whatever. You can map out your life, and even if you have to move and things around, that's fine, but
Yep.
you're getting the life you wanted to create. So anyway,
I love it.
have a vision for it. Don't follow everybody else. Don't expect it overnight. And then surround yourself with incredibly talented people. And one of the things, I'm sure, Chris, you've run across this, be willing as a leader to have people that are smarter than you or better than you
100%.
or totally different than you.
Yep.
If you all have the same traits, you're just a bunch of clones running around, not looking at things the
Yep.
right way. So,
I love that, man. And I think even as you get more successful, it's harder to do. But for me, I want to be the dumbest guy in the room
yeah.
and also the quietest guy in the room. I want to put myself around people that are like 20 years ahead of me and then not try to show up and be like, hey, this is what I've done. This is what this is about. Just sit there and hopefully they don't even know what I've done by the end of the session. And I'm just feverishly taking notes and saying, hey, how'd you do that? How'd this work? How'd this work?
Yeah.
And I think for young folks, like, man, mentors, everyone, I think there's a lot of complaints. Hey, there's not good mentors, but I've always found good mentors. And I think it's showing up, asking good questions, being humble. I met with a young man here who's building a tech company here in Colorado Springs, or is from Colorado Springs. Okay. And he was like, will you get coffee? I want to talk about this tech. And I was like, absolutely. And he just sat there and asked questions. And I was like, you will be successful because you weren't here to try to impress me or whatever. You just really want to learn. And anyway, so yeah, I love that. And I would second the Dream Manager book. We built a tool called the Life Sheet, which is kind of that dream book that you built, which is, hey, a 10-year plan, a 3-year plan, kind of like a VTO for your life. Yep. And then 90-day actions, and then your core values, your personal mission statement. If you would just use a tool like that and do it every quarter, you can build any life you want in the world, any life. Like there's nothing, especially in the U.S., we're citizens of the greatest country in the world by a huge margin. Yeah. But if you got to do the hard work, but have big dreams, right? Like, don't just be like, hey, I'm good with this house. It's like, if you want a house and the lake house and this and the freedom of time and the private jet, like all those things won't make you happy, but there's some utility in those. And if that's what you want, put it on the sheet.
Yeah, they won't make you happy. They'll help make life easier. They won't make you happy. You still have to carve out the time to go use those things. You have to enjoy your time doing it. You have to have the mental clarity to be there mentally, at that time and not focused elsewhere, all that. Yeah, we actually, I was looking around and was like, I wonder if I could pull it off the wall easily, but it's a dream board, basically. We have a bunch of sticky notes on there, and it says, I want to do this, that, and that, and each person on our team fills that out, and it helps them think that way. Because what you're talking about with the greatest country, the reason that we are the greatest country is because we were built from the ground up with dreaming, with something new, something different. And luckily we haven't swayed too far away from that. You look at some places where they didn't have enough of that, I guess. They swayed so far, it was irreversible, like Cuba, and now they're still paying the price for that. We luckily, we do this. I can deal with the pendulum. The pendulum is healthy because you get good out of both reflection points, and you end up somewhere that actually is beneficial to everyone.
Yeah, that phrase, I think, I agree. That phrase that has been bandied about a lot, but I think is right, that I think is that pendulum, which is, the good times make weak men make bad times, bad times make strong men,
hard times
women,
create strong men. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That's the second book. I loved that book. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to be
Yeah. And
challenged as
there's,
a man, read that book.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So you mentioned something that we didn't get to dive into, but I want to bring you back to it just because it sounded like you had a point there. You said, hey, you have to be willing to do kind of a 10-year long-term grind, but then also move quickly. So there was something there that you maybe wanted to connect in that we didn't get to.
Yeah, yeah. Good memory, by the way. What I was saying is you've got to flip the script at some point. So I've been doing this now for multiple decades. I'm sure people around look and they're like, oh, he's old or older or whatever. I'm like, when did that happen? But it happened. It happens to all of us. At some point, though, you got to look and say, okay, how many of the years have I wasted? What did I do with them? What did I fix? What did I change? Or did I just go reciprocal and just same hamster wheel cycle? And so I don't know when that reflection point is for each person. I think it's unique for all of us. But at some point, you have to do that. Otherwise, you're doing delayed gratification and you go to your retirement with delayed gratification. That's not what we're here for. You have to work for it. You have to wait for it. You have to pursue it, and you have to force it sometimes. And you have to know your own personal timeline. I'm on the latter part of my 40s now, and I'm like, I'm more aware now of, okay, what do I want my life to be? I want it to be a hybrid of having impact and purpose here, helping other people, but also when I want to get away and I want to go spend time with my wife, travel somewhere, that I have the freedom to do that. And now we have all of our kids out of the house, so it's us two. And so, like, I can't be at work all the time while she's without me, And so you have to be prepared for those phases, in my opinion.
I love that, man. And we are a big proponent of the mental model of seasons. And a season could be 10 years, a season could be a year, a season could be a day or an hour. Like seeing those seasons both in your life, in your business, and how short, how long some of those are, I think is really important to say, hey, we're in a season of growth. It's going to take us X amount of years to build this thing, but we're also in this other season, like really stacking those and being honest with them, I think is a really good, useful skill for folks to understand.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Love it, man. So let's wrap up with a couple more questions. I want to, number one, I want to ask you kind of where people can find you and interact with you professionally. But then the last two questions I usually close with are advice you would give to a Trent that's 10 years younger than you, or a young entrepreneur that's 10 years younger than you, knowing what you know. And then also like a resource, a book, a podcast, or something that over the last 90 days, you're like, this has been an absolute game changer for me. But let's start with first, because sometimes I forget about this. Where can people find you and interact with you professionally?
My email is probably the easiest. T Urban, so TURB as in boy, AN, at thewirenut.com. So THEWIRENUT. That's the easiest, and then from there we can take it into a conversation, a meeting, whatever's necessary to help out. And by the way, I get a kick out of that. I like that stuff. Business is fun. And so when you can help other people with it, it's like that's extra fun. Because hopefully there's an impact left out there that you may never even know was left. So that's fun. Like I said, I'm here for a purpose. Otherwise I would have sold. But let me go into that real quick. None of the larger competitors of ours, none, are fully family-owned, locally owned. There's one that has like another investor in it. Otherwise, they're locally kind of owned here. But all the others, they're owned from people out of state. And so the reason I haven't sold is that purpose. And because once you give the reins to somebody else, like a private equity investor, sure, you can cash out and go into the sunset, but then what are you going to do? As I joke around, I'm like, well, so you can go golfing every day. What are you going to do after 2 weeks? That's going to get
for sure.
You got to have some dynamic.
Yep.
What most owners are looking for is freedom. So just figure out how you can get that freedom while still leaving impact. That's what my goal has been. So I think I diverged there, but what was your second part of it?
Yeah, so two closing questions. One is if you could give some advice or counsel to a 10-year younger you or a young entrepreneur in 2025. So hey, in today's environment, and then also just close with any books, resources, things that have really changed your life.
You need to have knowledge. You always need to be studying. That's one thing that kills me about society. We have more information than we've ever had. If you want to know how to do something, the thoughts from some absolute genius on this or guru or whatever, go to YouTube, go to your favorite podcast app. It's absolutely everywhere. And so it's just a matter of seeking it out and then also picking which ones you like. That's what I would lean in on. We are a DNA transplant of all these different companies. So surround yourself with people that can leave impact, that can help.
Love that.
Be in peer groups, different things. I've been in Vistage groups locally. I've been on boards locally. On a board, you're serving. You have to stay focused, but you're not getting anything out of it because you're helping the others. Those are healthy things
For
to
sure.
do. Be poured into
I
and
love
then
that.
pour out to others. Some of my favorites, though, there are so many in our industry. I'm going to skip those because I don't think they're as beneficial for everybody unless they're in my industry. But one of them that I just really like is called Business Wars, and it's off of Wondery. But you can also find it on any other, like Spotify or whatever. They just release them later. But Wondery, Wondery. But it's called Business Wars, and I love it because it takes you back into, like, it has Chevy versus Ford. It has IBM versus, who was it at the time? I'm actually listening to one right now. I just did it this morning. And it is AOL Time Warner when they merged. And the disaster
nice.
of that. In fact, here, I'll just show
Yeah.
it.
Love it. There it is. Nice. Business Wars.
So you can go listen to music all the time, which I love music. We typically have it on in our home. But if that's all you're ever doing, where are you getting your knowledge? What are you filling your head?
Yeah, for sure.
So Business Wars, Business Movers, it's also a Wondery one. I just kind of like that stuff. I learned
Nice. What would be your top kind of 3 or 4 books that you would recommend to an entrepreneur?
Hard Times Create Strong Men, The Dream Manager, and they come from kind of polar opposites, and I think that's what we have to be healthy anyway. What do I have up here? Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I can't say I've fully finished it, but it's a good one, or what I've experienced in it. There's, of course, people will quote out Good to Great. There's another one, the E-Myth, and I've got a copy of it here, the E-Myth HVAC.
That's a great one.
That
Yeah,
one's more
Michael
focused.
Gerber.
Yep. Yeah, I've seen
Yeah,
him
for
speak
sure.
in Vegas at a seminar. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to close on a point, and this is probably for our younger audience, but you mentioned it. We have all of the data in the world.
Yep.
And I was coaching a young entrepreneur probably a month ago, and I said, hey, after just kind of listening, I said, I think if you guys would read Traction and learn EOS,
Oh, yeah.
it would change your
Another
lives.
great one.
And the entrepreneur said, well, I don't really read books. And I
Listen
said,
to him.
well, yeah, I said, hey, like if you don't do deep learning, I don't think you're going to have success.
Yeah.
You can watch a 2-minute long YouTube video, but that's a snack. Like you've got to go eat dinner and actually learn the stuff and do deep research, whether you're listening or reading or not, but you've got to learn the thing and get mastery at it. So for our younger audience, that's really what I would push is like, hey, for someone to write a book is really hard. I've written 2 of them. They both took me over 6 months to do. It's really hard.
Yep.
For me to put out a podcast or a YouTube video is not that hard.
Yeah, it's quick.
Right.
It's-
And it
yeah.
could be fundamentally flawed. So go find the deep tested data and books and resources that everyone's been talking. I mean, How to Win Friends and Influence People, 7 Habits for Highly Effective People, Good to Great, like
Win Fifth
Atomic
Law.
Habits. There's these books that everybody in business is like, hey, they're on my shelf and I've read them 3 times. Go find those books and read them. Trent, are there any closing remarks or wisdom or thing you want to share with our audience before we close up?
I mean, to add value, maybe. Otherwise, I don't know. I think I've unpacked it, but let me get to that just a sec. I'm looking at, because I go in those ebbs and flows of my life as well. Sometimes I don't want to have a book, read a book.
For
I
sure.
have one that I've been slow reading, and it's about this continent before, all the European countries came over. So it's interesting. It's history. So, but I've been slow reading it. What I'll read quicker is Audible. So I'll go in and I'll do an Audible one. So I have Audible right here. Turn the Ship Around is another good one. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. That's a great one for sales.
That's our negotiating
influence.
manual.
Yep.
That's an awesome book.
Yep. To your question, though, of what closing advice? If business is if you want to make business your Super Bowl, then focus on it. Learn it. I'm not poo-pooing sports at all. I like sports, but it's amazing some people will put their entire being into a team, and they're influenced so heavily by that. And they'll learn all the stats and study it at every waking moment. And I get it that it's the hobby in that situation. But what true impact to your life is that going to lead? So you got to ask those questions. Where am I spending my time? What am I focusing on and learning? And if you don't want to be a lifelong learner, that's fine. You'll find your sweet spot, but it's not going to be at the top.
I love it, man. That's so good. Trent, thanks so much for all the wisdom. Thank you for joining us on the show, and look forward to catching up soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Exceptional Companies Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or via RSS so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you liked this show, please reach out through our website, www.excoadvisors.com, for free tools to order a copy of Selling Main Street, or to sign up for our free webinar on how to sell your Main Street business.